Hello everyone, hopefully you can hear and see me okay. Thank you for tuning in to watch the stream. I hope everyone is well. I can see a few familiar faces in the chat, so that's great, thank you. My name is Morgan Evans. Hopefully today I can show you a few bits of Depence that you might not have seen before, specifically looking at the workflow of a timeline-based project. As well as some of the general tools and functions of Depence. Hopefully a lot of you will have watched Tim Routledge's talk last Monday, and I may be recapping a few elements of this, but if you stick with it, I'm going to get onto cameras, projectors, automation, DMX streams, and all that good stuff. So we're going to go through the workflow from start to finish, creating a basic project, adding lighting, video, audio, effects, lasers to rendering out the project itself, finishing with a look at the final rendered video. Before I start, I'd just like to say a big thank you to Jake at Connect Live, Tim Routledge, Thomas Frankie and all the Synchronom team, as well as the amazing Fifi for helping me put this together. Moderators will be answering your questions in the chat and hopefully saving a few for me to answer at the end. So Depence², what is it? I'm sure if you're watching this, you've probably heard or seen people using it or got it yourself. So it's a real-time, high-quality pre-visualization software. It's made by a company called Synchronom. Depence started as a fountain software. And basically, if you can visualize water, you can pretty much do anything after that. So that's what they've done. It's worth noting that I'm not paid to make this video. I'm just making this because I really enjoy using the software. And I want it to be the next industry standard, basically. And I hope it soon will be. As with all programs, any program, it's not perfect. There are little bugs in there. It's a brand new product, and I know the team are working really hard to improve and develop it. Personally, what makes this program so powerful is the timeline feature. I just think the ability to record in your DMX, ArtNet or ACN onto a track, and then layer up your video content, audio, and then disconnect your hardware and be able to just scrub through it seamlessly is such a powerful tool. It's worth noting that Depence does not currently do CAD in the sense that you can't export paperwork out of it, but you can either build inside Depence or import in, and I'll go through that just in a second. Although you may think, two programs importing in never works, it's not going to work nicely, but MVR imports on Depence are seriously seamless, and the import function is just going to get better and better. So Depence² has 6 modules. Today we're going to look at all the modules minus the fountains and control, but particularly focusing on the animate module. I'm going to start by showing you the kind of results you can expect out of a rendered timeline project. About a month ago, I finished a personal conceptual project inspired by the music of Dua Lipa, which I programmed in MA2. I made the video content in Unreal Engine, Cinema 4D and After Effects, and obviously rendered in Depence. So here's a 2-minute cut down clip. Okay, so hopefully that gave you an idea of the renders that you can get out of Depence. I'm going to put the full link in the chat so it can be viewed in the best quality in the full video if you're interested. But if you have any questions about the concept or about the software as we go through, please leave them in the chat and I'll do my best to answer some of the questions at the end. Cool, let's get into Depence. I'm going to start by making a new project and calling it Demo. I'll go through some of the tools and windows just in a second, but first let's import some stuff in to have a look at. I'm going to bring in an MVR file that I've exported out of Vectorworks. MVR just stands for My Virtual Rig. It's an open file format that basically has all the 3D model data, fixture locations, patch, and modes and all that. On the left we've got all the Vectorworks fixtures, and on the right the Depence fixtures that will be replacing them. Because I previously imported this MVR, it's remembered my last fixture choices, but if this was the first time this would all just be blank. So if we go to the library window and search up the first fixture type, and then if you select that you can choose which mode you want it in, and then you literally just drag and drop it on. Let's do another one. Cool. Because those are already done, I'm just going to press OK. And here's our model as drawn in Vectorworks. I made sure to add quite a few fixtures because on Tim's talk last Monday I know a lot of people were asking how Depence handles a large rig. So for reference I'm running a 1080 Ti. Hopefully this will be a good test. And if we go to the patching window, we'll see it's brought across all the channel information. And then the same with the layers. And then in this 3D hierarchy window, this is basically where every object in the project is populated, so it's brought all those in. Okay, so there's two types of view. So there's project view, which we're currently in, and there's CAD view, which is a wireframe view. Let's give this project some context and add a venue. So I'm going to import a standard FBX model now. Cool, and if we select it and then go to the rotate tool, holding shift will snap it, and then just line it up. That looks good, and if we switch back to the project view, we'll see we've now got a venue as well. Let's add a subject to the stage. So if let's bring in a person. If we go back to library and models, people and animated, there's a few choices. Let's add John. Again, just drag and drop him on. There's John. If you select John, you can go to the settings and you can choose some of the pre-made animations, but static John is alright for this. Cool. So now let's texture up these models we've just brought in. So if we go to materials, there's a whole bunch of pre-made textures here. Let's start with the floor. Add a black stage floor. Again, just drag and drop it on. And if we go to generic, there's some fabric, so let's add a black fabric to the back. Cool, and we could do the same to the FBX model if we wanted, so for example, but we don't want that, so I just undo that. Cool. The approach with truss is slightly different. So if we select a piece and then go to 3D hierarchy and go to the child of that, we can then go to the material options, and there's an option here called change type, and select all meshes with the same material. This is then going to mean we can easily change all the truss color at once. For some reason it's in two textures, but let's do the other one now. Change the type, all meshes. Cool. Now we've got a blacked out rig. Adding fixtures and truss inside Depence itself is just as easy. So if we go to CAD view, let's add a truss and some fixtures just to show that. So if we go to models and stage, truss, and then again you just drag and drop it on. If you hover over the end, it will just snap, and now that's one piece. If we view this in project view and select that, we can put that roughly at trim height. Cool. Okay, let's add some fixtures to that. So if we go to this hang fixture tool, and then back to our fixture library, we can just search up cool, and then you just drag them onto this tool here, and then you select a chord of the truss, and then you can rotate them so they're underhung, and then they're slightly overhanging the ends, so you can just adjust that, and you can see it's really simple to do. Another nice thing you can do is alternate fixtures. So say you wanted BMFL JDC, you can very easily do that, and if you create on that, then that's just added that to the project. So if we scroll down in the 3D hierarchy, we'll see it's made us a truss group, and in that group we've got the two sections of truss and the fixtures. So we're going to want to patch those fixtures. So if we go to the patching tab and universe 2, I think, and then we just grab that finger and just drag it on, and those are now patched. Obviously your selection order affects the order that those are patched, but we're not going to need this in this project, so I'm just going to delete that. Cool. Okay, let's add some lasers now. So I'm going to switch back to CAD view and back to library, and then if you go to fixtures, lasers, and then we're just going to use a generic 10 watt and just drag that on. I'm going to position that by the first truss. Duplicate it, and then you can see it's adding them in the 3D hierarchy window. Oops. And then duplicate again, add another one here, and another one here. Here. Cool. We switch back to project view, they're probably going to be at 0, so we can just select them all and bring them up. That looks good. So now we've got our lasers in, and the way Depence works by default is it expects these to be controlled by pangolin, but we're going to control them over DMX. So there's something here in the library called laser link, and basically this is just a little DMX control box that allows you to control over DMX. Just drop this somewhere in the project. We'll hide that, put it under the stage. Cool, and that's now in. And I think, yeah, it's auto patched itself on universe 1 there. If we select the lasers again and go to settings, you can choose the laser source number, and you could have multiple laser link controllers if you wanted, but we're just going to have them all being controlled by one box. Okay, cool, so that's all looking good. I've had a lot of people asking me about moving scenery and automation in Depence. So for this project I've implemented some rotating video wall and a flying gauze. So let's open those additions. Okay, cool. So this is everything we've just done with some additions. So what's been added? This gauze here, so a four-sided gauze with a translate motor, which is basically going to allow it to be flown in and out, and these three cuboid video walls that can also be rotated. So let's go through how you do automation in Depence. So if we go to fixtures and machinery, as well as the kinetic lights and DMX winches, there's some movement motors and move and rotate motor. And essentially what this allows you to do is just control the position and rotation of an object over DMX. So we just add it in like any other fixture, so you can choose which mode you want it in. And then if we just double click that, it will drop one in at 0, 0. Cool. So say for example we were making one of these video walls, we'd make a new object and a cube and pull that up like that. We can scale it up like that, and then we need to change the texture so it can be a video wall. So if we go to material and change material type, there's a video wall material, and there it's done it. You can change the pixel height, pitch, all that stuff, intensity here. So if we wanted this video wall to be moved by the move and rotate fixture that we just put in, we need to go to the move and rotate fixture, and if we open this up, you can see all the different modules in the fixture, and then we drag in our cube, LED cube, into here. Now it is now a child of this move and rotate fixture. So just like any lighting fixture, we need to patch this move motor. So if we go to patching and universe 2, we just drag it in, and that's now patched. Okay, so we're going to use the internal programmer just to test out this motor. So if we go to the programmer tab, and then and then we see all the attributes of that fixture. And if we go to the rotation, obviously it's rotating around the pivot, which is the motor at 0, 0. But there you go, that's working. Cool, so we've got 3 of those at the back. I'm just going to delete that now. And then at the front we've got this gauze. So how you apply a gauze: if we make a new gauze, we're just going to use a plane. And rotate that. Cool. That's rotated the right way, and then scale it up again. And then the gauze material is just like any other material. So if we go to materials, I think it's in indoor fabric projection gauze, and we just drag that on, and that is now a gauze. Cool, so I've just made 4 of those, put them in the square, and attached a move motor like we just did previously. So let's patch those. So we're just going to select the blocks. Drag them in, and then select the gauze. Now those are all patched, so that's flowing out by default. And if we test these by selecting them and going back to the programmer, we can then rotate them, not that way, this way. Like that. Same with the gauze. That can be moved around. And there we go, so it's in there and flies out like that. And the same obviously applies to moving trusses or any other object. Okay, so now we've got all the elements in our model, we're going to start to put together a timeline. So we're going to do that through the repository window, and basically the repository has all the show related content in it. So if we go to sequences, right click and create a new sequence, we'll call it demo. And then we're going to switch to the animation window, and this just gives us, it just reroutes some of the windows, takes them away and puts them in. But it has added this show sequencer window, which you could just add here. But yeah, by double clicking the demo sequence, it's pulled that in and it's created us a new timeline. So the first thing we're going to add is lighting. So we're going to get that in through an streaming ACN stream. To do that, you want to go to settings, network settings, and then obviously assign the correct network card, and then go to hardware, and then add a new show player, and this then gives you ArtNet and ACN, and then you literally just toggle that on, and that is ACN working. Cool. Now we need a track to actually record that to. So if we right click here and add a new DMX stream track, literally all you have to do is press record and it will record in that ArtNet or ACN stream. I don't have any MA hardware with me, so I'm just gonna open up a new project with that imported in. Okay, cool. So we've got some further additions in this project. We'll start by looking at where we left off, and that was ArtNet or ACN. If we go to the animation and the show sequencer, we can see we've got some lighting cues in there. So it's worth noting, although of course you do need parameters to stream ACN or ArtNet, you can have multiple DMX stream timelines. So it's very easy to just enable or disable universes and just layer up multiple tracks. It's a nice workaround if you don't have a load of NPUs. So also in this new project, as you would have noticed, there are 3 projectors here. Adding projectors are just like any fixture, so I'll just demonstrate that. Under fixtures, video, generic, you literally just drop in a projector the same way, but we don't need that, so I'm just going to delete that. Cool. So let's keystone these projectors. So it's really quite clever, this. If you select a projector, and go to the keystone, a little settings window pops up, and it allows you just to adjust the keystoning just like you would with a traditional projector. And you can do like mask edges and invert it and all that stuff. And as you can see, it's projecting onto the gauges like that. I think that overlap is just them hitting through. Obviously there's 2 projectors firing into each other, but it doesn't really matter with the effect we're trying to do. Now we need the content to drive the projectors and the video wall. So let's, in the show sequencer, add some new tracks. So we're going to need, before doing that, we need to go to settings, video sources, and add some video sources. So you can add an NDI source, as Tim Routledge demonstrated last Monday, but we're going to use Media Player because we want to import the files onto the timeline. I'm going to name this LED wall 1. Cool. So there we've got our 4 video sources that we need. Now we can go back to the timeline, right click again, and add video track. So we're going to make a video track for each of the sources. Cool. Let's get the video content in now. So if we go to video files in the repository and right click again, we can go locate the media and just import these in. Cool, now we've got our video in. All we need to do is then drag them to the appropriate track. Cool. And if you hold Alt and mouse wheel, it allows you to zoom out. As you can see, it defaults as only 10-second durations. So I'm just gonna, the clips are actually 60 seconds long, so I'm just gonna change that. Oh, I can't do it there. I'll do that manually. Cool. So now the video content is in, it's on the timeline. We need to assign the sources to the projectors and the video wall. So we'll start with the video wall. If we select the first one and go to settings, we can see it's got a video source drop down. That is video wall 1, 2, 3, and then all the projectors are on the same video source. A quick way to do this, if you are selecting in project view and you get an incorrect selection, you can actually right click and you can filter it down and filter just projectors. Now only the things we want are selected, and we can assign it the video source like that. Cool. So now all our sources are assigned. If we stop this and play, should see, there you go, some content come up on the gauze. The last thing we're going to do for this project is add a camera and do some camera animation. Now when we're playing back the timeline, we want the audio there as well, so we're just going to add the audio file in. Like that, and then make an audio track and drag it in. And there we've got everything in. Lighting, video and audio. The last thing we're going to add is a camera to get some camera animation, so we're not just looking at a static view for the final render. So the way we do that is go to Objects, add a camera, and then if we go to the 3D hierarchy, out of the live view, so we can see the camera because it's hidden in the live view, and then we're going to drag the camera into this project, and it's going to make us a camera track. We don't need scale or rotation, so I'm just going to delete those. Actually, we do need rotation. Cool. So if you go to the camera tab here on the project window, you can select that camera. We're now viewing that camera. If we take down the ambient light and go into the live view, we should start seeing what the project is going to look like. If we look for our opening camera angle, and then you literally just put a keyframe in, and then move the camera and add another keyframe. That has then done a camera move for us. You can literally just drag and drop the keyframes anywhere. I usually use, if you select the camera track, the position track, sorry, and go to linear, it just makes linear keyframes, which I find easier to work with, but that's just preference. And there you've got your camera movement. If you right click on a keyframe, you can choose various ease in options. Okay, so we've got our whole project on the timeline now. We've got lighting, video, sound, camera animation. The last thing we're going to want to look at is render settings. So if we go to render settings and lighting, we can play with the haze, the scale of the haze, and the structure. This is all, of course, personal preference. In the post effects tab, this is where the camera settings are stored. So usually it's best to use manual exposure, because auto doesn't always understand what's going on, and obviously it's going to give you an imbalance of light on fades and that so forth. But you can set a manual exposure here. I think about 6 probably will look alright. That looks good. So everything is now set. So the last thing to do is set the loop region, which it's done automatically for us, but that's this blue bar here. And you can select it to render only that part. So to render out this project, you just click render, and if anyone's used Premiere or After Effects, this should look familiar, but you can just select the quality you want, give it a name, select the loop region, multi-sampling. The max you want to be doing is 10 times, but this is literally going to double the render time every time you put this up an increment. Lighting, it's got all the settings that we edited earlier in the render tab, but you can edit them here as well. And then in video, you can set the bitrate. Like so. And then you literally just click start rendering, and then that's done. It will just churn through the timeline and render that at whatever quality settings that you've set. So in classic style, here is one I rendered earlier. This is the final project rendered out. Okay, cool. So while you're watching that, I've just opened the final project file with the full camera animation in, just to show you what the real-time performance is like. As I mentioned, I'm running a 1080 Ti, but as you can see, like, this is really impressive. And it's the same if we play it back. So if we actually watch the project you just saw in real time, you can compare it and see how good the real-time engine is. We just set the camera to the animated one. personally, I think it's seriously impressive. Like, to be rendering all that video, lighting, and effects in real time like that, I think it really is a game changer. And you can scrub through this, just play whatever bits you want, and it'll just pick up from wherever you are in the timeline. The level of detail on the fixtures, and I think it's amazing. Cool, so I think I'll leave it there. Thank you very much for bearing with me and watching this. Sadly, I can't do live questions, but if you have any questions, just leave them in the comments, and hopefully someone from Synchronom or myself can help answer those. Cool, thank you.